Welcome, Shalom Aleichem. We're learning today the Maamar Vayehiyu Chayei. It was said Shabbos Chayei 1980, which was Chav Cheshvan. It was the Rebbe Rashab's birthday, not just any birthday, but 120th birthday. And the Rebbe is actually going to explain in the Maamar towards the end the importance of that birthday and how it connects to every one of us. The topic of our Maamar is Simcha, the importance of serving Hashem with joy, how that helps a person, and how it's not a stira, it's not a contradiction with the fact that a person needs to be humble. On the contrary, the two go together perfectly. And specifically in our generation, as we lead up and as we prepare for the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, Simcha is so much more important. We're able to be joyous, not just joyous in a humble fashion, but we're able to express our joy because that's our generation of Malchus, the last generation as we lead up to the Gula. Let us begin. We're going to Be'ez Hashem give a very quick share. It's going to be swift, a little bit from the Aris, we'll say outside, and let us begin. The pasuk begins our parsha, the life of Sarah, enumerating her years, 100 years, 20 years, 7 years, altogether 127. Tavrish Ayin Tes Rebbe Rashab as well as the Maamar with this Divra Maschil and asks a simple question, points out, why does the pasuk include again Shnei Chayei Sarah? Rikvar Nemar Vayehiyu Chayei Sarah. Mefarshei Seba Meis Asiris V'Chodes. The pasuk begins with Vayehiyu Chayei Sarah, then goes on to enumerate 100, 20, tens, and then concludes again the years of Sarah. These are the years of Sarah. The question is, it seems redundant. Lama Kaifad Lemer Shnei Chayei Sarah. Why does it conclude again the years of Sarah? That's the first question. Another question. The Zohar points out, why specifically Sarah? We enumerate her years. The Rebbe adds in a bracket something which is more unique to the Rebbe style of learning, that the entire parsha is called Chayei Sarah. Therefore, it's mashma that the entire parsha is about the years of Sarah. We don't find by the other mothers, the other wives of the Avos, to enumerate the years that they lived. Maybe the Zohar explains, the Rebbe Rashab actually brings the Zohar also Chava comes down to the world, and we know what happened. She was connected to the snake, to Klippa. Also, the same Noach came to the world, and it says that he drank wine, he was inebriated, and he became drunk, and this is also seen as a negative thing. Also, Sarah came to the world, she came down, she descended, she ascended, and everything was fine. She didn't connect to Klippa, and that's what the pasuk says. Vayal Avram Mitzrayim hu ve'ishtei ubegin kach zach l'chayin Elohin. Avram comes out to Mitzrayim, him and his wife, and the pasuk says afterwards they went up. They went down to Mitzrayim, they went up. This is a representation of the bigger picture where Avram and Sarah came down to this world and left this world without being affected by the Klippa, and therefore the pasuk, the Zohar concludes, begin kach zach l'chayin Elohin. Therefore, she was zeicha to a supernal life, to an elevated type of life. The Zohar concludes, and therefore Dilah, the life, Havachayin, Dilah Havachayin, it was her life, so to speak, she owned, and she, so to speak, the life became hers, it became one with her. According to this, Rebbe Rashab explains these two questions we had. First of all, why do we enumerate the years altogether? And why does the Torah duplicate the word Shnei Chayei Sarah? Why? Why specifically do we enumerate her years? Because her years are very important. Specifically, Sarah, through coming to this world and then leaving this world without being affected, she was zeicha to this supernal life, and therefore we mention her years. Second of all, the second diuk, why Torah enumerates Chayei Sarah as well, again, at the end of the pasuk. If you remember, the Zohar said two things. First of all, she was zeicha. She merited to supernal life, as well as the life became hers. It became one with her. And these are the two Chayei Sarahs. The beginning of the pasuk, Viheyu Chayei Sarah, means she obtained this life. And Shnei Chayei Sarah at the end means that life, not just that she reached this level, did she merit to this level, it actually became hers. The Rebbe asks, we have to understand first, what are these two concepts? To be zeicha, to merit this life, as well as to make this life one with you, to eternalize it. Another question. Move on. The fact that the Zohar puts these three together, there's a correlation between the three who descended, and specifically Sarah is the one who came out peacefully. You have to say, Noach as well as Chava wanted to accomplish the same thing Sarah tried. Ella, Shaloi, also beyond they weren't successful. El Shaldis and Asasetzel Mirida. Not just didn't they succeed, but they were pulled down by Elamazah, by Chava, who was too connected to the snake, and by Noach, who was Vayishaker, he became drunk. Sarah, on the other hand, she as well descended into our world. But unlike the other two, she had the aliyah. Afterwards, Nachtas V'Salkis, she comes down and she elevates. She ascends and she descends. You have to understand what's the connection between these three characters, Chava, Noach, and Sarah, that all three of them tried to accomplish one thing, but only Sarah was successful. In the next episode, is going to explain the relevance between Sarah's life and us. Why are we even discussing this idea of Chayei Sarah? Torah tells us, Chazal tell us that whatever happened to the obvious, seemingly the obvious reformat in Torah, so we don't really learn practical halacha, but everything they did ends up being a siman, a sign. It plays out in our life. The taichir, the explanation when we say siman, it's not just a sign that we could see and we could, so to speak, get motivated, but more than that, it's actually, it gives us the ability, it gives us koyach. Just like when the Zohar introduces a new Tana or a new Imra, a new saying, it'll start with Pasach. Pasach means to open a way. Why? Because after a certain Tana opens the way, and especially after he paves the way, now there is the koyach given for every Jew to do the same. And the R here, the Rebbe brings from the famous story of the Beis Yosef, where he toiled for a long time to come up with a certain chiddush, and then he was in shul and he heard ordinary people speaking, learning literally the way he did, and he was very fallen by himself. And then he was told that no, because he came up with this idea, this chiddush, now it was in the world, and it was much easier for regular, simple people to obtain it. And that's what the Rebbe is telling us here. It's not just that when we look at the obvious, we get inspired and motivated, but we actually receive koyach from our parents. And the Rebbe is going to explain how come. Now, if we're going to do it later, it's not going to be as difficult. Why? This is true, not just by Tanaim and Roim, but of course by the Ovis, because they are, again, the forefathers of every Jew. And we receive everything that they did and invested in is given to us literally b'Yerusha as an inheritance in our mother's milk. So therefore, not just we can look at them as an outsider and get inspired, but we actually receive their energy in our bloodstreams. And the Rebbe says the same too when it comes to our mothers, and especially Sarah, who was the first, which we actually do learn a lot from Sarah already. It says regarding Sarah, Hashem tells Avram to listen to Sarah. In other words, Sarah is, so to speak, the leader of this, the Rebbe would typically translate as Neshama and the Guf, and we learn from here how the Neshama actually has to listen to the Guf, the famous Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. In other words, we see already this idea by Sarah where we are applying her life and her message to our way of living. Then moving in now, also Sarah v'nachos v'solkos v'chol ma'asav v'mois hayra. Therefore, you must say that this concept, this story where Sarah descends into our world and leaves and is unharmed, is a hira. Not just it is a sign, a hira, as well as in Nisis Koyach, it actually gives us the energy for every single yid. So now that I've asked, in addition to the earlier questions of trying to understand the actual pasuk, the question is, what is the lesson that we learn from the story, from this Zohar, which teaches that Sarah, unlike Adam and unlike Chava and Noach, Sarah descends into this world and ascends and is unharmed. Gimel. The idea is, like the Rebbe Rashab explains in the Maamar, serving the Eibishter, it's vital. It must be done with joy. Not just does it need to be, but it is a yisoid, it's a ikr, it's a foundation. It is literally a very important principle, a fundamental idea within Yiddishkeit. You do a Pirush Arizal. Among the klalis, Torah says the reason why you are getting all these terrible curses is because you didn't serve the Eibishter with joy. Now the simple meaning is you are being expelled from your land because you didn't serve the Eibishter when you were in your land and when everything was good. But the Arizal explains that Alter Rebbe brings a very important Pirush here where you could read it a lot more literally. The reason why all the punishments come is because you didn't serve Hashem with joy, which comes to show joy is not a bonus, it's not an add-on, but you're literally getting punished. In other words, you're being held accountable for not being joyous. Comes out pretty clearly that it's a ikar gadol, is very important, joy, the aspect of joy in our avodas Hashem. As well as Terror brings what the Arizal, the reason, the way the Arizal was merited to the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, was through his joy. And you're going to ask, okay, but who are we to compare ourselves to Arizal? No, it was told to us in Razal, therefore it's a lesson for every Yid. The bottom line is, when you do Avodas Hashem with joy, the Avodah is complete. And the Rebbe is going to go off in the bracket. I'm going to skip the brackets for a moment. The Rebbe is going to say that when a Yid's Avodah is complete, the whole world is complete. But I'm going to just finish the paragraph first. Not just is your Avodah complete when it's through joy, not just does it add a certain sense of completion, but it's actually vital. Therefore, you're accountable for not serving Hashem with joy. Like we already said, the pasuk that Hashem, so to speak, holds us accountable and punishes us for not serving the Eibusher with joy. And the reason for this is service of Hashem. The purpose of it is to bring Hashem to the world, and that happens through simcha. So in other words, Avodas Hashem can be done dry, can be done technically, but then you're missing the point. The point of Avodas Hashem is actually to fill the world with elikus, and that happens through joy. When you're joyous, the flow, all the flows are open, and you're able to reveal Hashem in the world. In the brackets, Rebbe explains how when a person does the Avodah completely, then the whole world is complete, because the whole world is all about a Yid. Let's see this inside. Shezeu ikar mitziyusam. No, I'm sorry. Through this, there is a completion of the world as well. Sharei. Is the whole purpose of creation for Jewish people. It's not just for Jewish people to sit around, it's for the Yidden to serve the Eibusher, for Yidden to do Avodah, which their Avodah is to make the world complete. What is a Yid? A Yid is Avodah. So when we say the world is created for a Yid, it means for the Avodah of a Yid. We, through our Avodah, we create, the world should be complete. So when our Avodah is complete, the whole world is complete. Now that I've asked a simple question, seemingly the world is created complete. Seemingly, if you're going to say the Eibusher, one of the reasons of creation was Hashem wanted to be kind and nice and reveal His kindness, like the nature of good is to always share good. So how could you say the world was created for Yidden to perfect it if the world is already perfect? Nevertheless, the Rebbe says, the mere fact that Hashem wants to make good for His subjects, for His creations, in other words, you're right, the world was created complete, and you're right, Hashem is creating the world to do good, but that's part of the good that Hashem is doing, is giving Jewish people the opportunity to perfect the world, to make the world even more shalom, so to speak, even more whole than how it was when they entered. Even a greater level of completion than it was at the time of creation. Again, because a Jew's avodah is complete when it's done with joy, therefore the whole world is complete when a Jew is joy. Like we explained, avodah Hashem is to bring elikus into the world, and that happens when a person is joyous. You have to bavarin, it's important. At the end of the day, the pasuk does say to serve Hashem in reverence and fear. In the same pasuk it continues, Vigilu means to be joyous, berada means in tremble. In other words, a Yid has to remember there's a balance here. It's not just celebrate joy, dance at the table, there's a certain balance here which you have to maintain. Even in the pasuk that tells us to serve Hashem with fear, it concludes it has to be with joy. How do we make sense of it? Is it joy or is it fear? And the answer is as follows. When simcha has been murgish, when it's felt, when you feel your own yeshus, when you're rejoicing, you could, from feeling joy, you can feel your own self, your own yeshus, your own, the fact that you're disconnected from Hashem. And from that joy could come many negative implications. Therefore you have to always remember that there's an aspect of yira, of fear, that a person needs to always keep in mind. Then your joy is not, I am joyous, but it's a joy that comes in the context of bittul v'anava, in the context of feeling surrendered and feeling humble. Like the pasuk says, Anavim, who are humble, those are the one who gather in front of Hashem in joy. Simcha, first of all, comes together, coincides with joy, and even more than that, the simcha actually emerges from the joy, and we'll explain that in Sif Vav. Now that we explained this nikuda, this idea, we're going to go back to explain and to answer our original question, and Be'ez Hashem, by the end of the Maamar, a little bit later, we're going to elaborate more on these ideas. Again, what does it mean exactly? Simcha and bittul coexist. Now that we explained that nekuda in short, we're going to go back to answer our original question, the original diukim and what the Zohar means. We're going to, Be'ez Hashem, later on in the Maamar, elaborate more on this nekuda of how the simcha and bittul coexist. Seemingly, it seems at first glance as a contradiction. If I'm joyous and I'm humble, how do they work together? And the Rebbe is going to explain how adarabah, not just they come together, but one comes from the other. For now, we're going to go back to explain the Zohar. Ois Daled. What does it mean that Chava came to the world and Sarah came? All three of them wanted to rejoice. They wanted to come into the world and bring Hashem through being joyous and truly living the life, expressing true life. It says, Razal, one of the opinions of what the Eitzadas was, it was grape, it was wine, and Sarah wanted to pour some wine and give it to Avram. In other words, there was joy. The objective here was joy. As well as Noach, we see it was wine he was drinking. The Pasuk says, wine is what makes Jewish people happy as well as Hashem happy. The problem was Chava felt her own joy. It was her own mitzias that was being joyful. Therefore, she observed the tree as something which is tasty and something delicious. Right? This is something which she desired. She felt it. It was herself. It wasn't an extension of her bittul, so to speak, of her humility to Hashem. Noach as well, Noach comes down and wants to fix the problem, wants to fix this error that was made by Chava. Chava felt her own mitzias. Fixing it, the problem was, he fixed it al yidei hargasha. He had the same problem. He as well felt his own joy. Therefore, he obviously didn't succeed in fixing Chava's problem. When he drank wine, it didn't bring him to true joy, which is bittul, but it brought him to shichrus, which inebriation or intoxication is something which you escape reality. It's not, again, Rabbi explains, who had Argasha, you're right that when you're drunk, you don't feel yourself, so seemingly it's bittul, right? You're lacking the yeshus, on the contrary, there's no you. When you get drunk, your mind is not straight, your heart is not straight, everything is mevulvul, so it's just a different way of feeling yourself, but it's not actually the idea of being humble. In Argasha, so what's the repair? How do you fix this issue, this problem? Nasal, they Sarah Dafka, specifically Sarah, the ability to do that. Kabbalah actually says Sarah fixed what Chava ruined. Sarah, so now we're going to explain Sarah is Malchus. Sarah as well can mean rulership. In Bittul, which Malchus is the idea of Bittul, the idea of being humble, being surrendered to Hashem. Again, what was the problem? That they were expressing their own joy. They felt their own joy. It was themselves too much. Sarah, who her idea is bittul, when she is joyous, it's not a problem. Simcha, because bittul, it's a simcha that is in the same realm, in the same context as her bittul. Therefore, Sarah was able to descend and then ascension because Malchus is surrendered to Hashem. Malchus is bottled to Hashem, only an extension of Hashem's will and glory. Therefore, the descent is for a ascent. You're not going down in the world to enjoy the world, but on the contrary, you're going down to elevate the world. And it says the reason why Malchus goes down to create a world is actually to elevate the godly energy which is down here. In other words, it's here with a godly purpose. As well, like we explained earlier, the story of Avram and Sarah, and actually now our Parsha Lech Lecha going down to Mitzrayim the physical story, which again is a reflection of the greater picture of Avram and Sarah. Sarah coming down to our world. The purpose of this descent into Mitzrayim was to eventually come out of Mitzrayim with the money and the gold, and obviously this refers to, like the Rebbe explained, this refers to Nitzoytze Kedusha, which were in the gold and silver, and this all happened through Sarah, like the pasuk says, Avram Heiti Bavura, obviously, right? Sarah was the one who was abducted and kidnapped and taken to the home of Pari, and then Avram was showered with the gifts through Sarah. In other words, it was Sarah who went down to Elam Hazah to elevate the Nitzitzis. We see this idea here where Sarah has that ability. And through Sarah, having this concept of Bittul, Malchus, and being able to be an extension of Hashem, and therefore even her joy was only an extension of Hashem. It was in the context of her humility, of her Bittul. Through this, she merited to supernal life, an elevated type of life, to the extent that this life was actually hers. What do I mean this life was hers? Life here is represented in the idea of Simcha. Not just that she obtained Simcha, but now her Simcha can actually be felt. Why can her Simcha be felt? Seemingly, we said the whole problem with Chava and Noach was that they felt their joy. Sarah, for whatever reason, is able to feel her joy. How come? Because Malchus, by essence, innately doesn't have her own identity. Her identity is only an extension of Hashem. Therefore, even what she feels is not her feeling, it's Hashem feeling. So even the feeling is not a self-feeling, it's a feeling of Elikus, of Hashem. Now, what does this mean practically? What does this mean in every Yid service of Hashem? A Yid is able to reach a level where even though he's joyful, he's dancing, he's celebrating, nevertheless, it's in the context of Bittul. Just like the king himself, he is joyful, he is, so to speak, elevated, but it's not his own elevation, it's in the realm of Bittul. He himself, so to speak, is a melech. Therefore, when a Jew has this type of simcha, in addition to no negative implications, nothing bad will come out of it, like we do find, unfortunately, by Chava and Noach, this brings to the greatest aliyah, the greatest heights. Simcha can actually bring you to the greatest places, to the extent it can bring you to a situation which is similar to the one which will be when Mashiach comes, like the Rebbe Rashad actually continues to explain in the Maamar, this simcha that Sarah obtained actually is similar to the simcha of the Geula, like the Rebbe is going to explain in the next Oisei. What does that mean? We can connect this to the pasuk. It says when Mashiach comes, that's when we're going to rejoice. What do we mean? That's when joy will be complete. To the extent the simcha we have today is incomparable to the simcha which will be when Mashiach comes. Even complete simcha today is humbled in comparison to the simcha of the Geula. Therefore it says it will be complete, right? Mali. Even though simcha of Gula will come through our simcha today, like everything, when Mashiach will come, will just be a expression, a revelation of all the avodah the Jewish people have done and accumulated throughout these 2,000 years where we're working through Galus. So it's true, we're earning it, so to speak, through our joy today, but the joy, the simcha of Gula will be incomparable to the joy we have today. You can't call it reward. It's not even a reward. It's completely like what the Rebbe would say, a mitzvah. It's like finding something completely new. So now we can explain. What is the name of Sarah's child? Remember, we have Avram's child, Ishmael. Sarah as a child named Yitzchak. Yitzchak, so to speak, is the extension of Sarah. Yitzchak means joy, right? Like the pasuk says, that's why he was named Yitzchak. Sarah has an extension. Sarah as a child, that child is named joy because that is what comes, so to speak. That's what radiates automatically from Sarah. Because the joy, the life that Sarah was able to obtain is like the life of Mashiach. So that's first of all why Sarah's child is Yitzchak, which is joy. laughter. In addition, it's even more than that. It's the schleik and the simcha but not just any joy, a joy which is connected specifically to the geula, like we see that when Mashiach comes, we'll actually call Yitzchak our father. So what do we say till this point? Because Sarah was Malchus, she was Batal, her joy was even able to be felt, because when it's being felt, it's not her rejoicing in her own mitzvahs, her own yeshus, it's actually an extension of Hashem. Therefore, her joy was able to be complete, literally to the extent of the completion of the joy of Geula, which as well, we will all be an extension of Hashem, and therefore, we will be able to be joyful completely. Now, in the Eis Vav, I was going to explain a little bit of a problem, this, how do you indeed combine the two concepts of Bittul as well as Simcha? Izvav, Bittul, to explain this concept. When does Simcha come as an extension of Bittul? Even when the Simcha is felt and rejoiced and it's expressed, it's still in a realm in the context of Bittul. True joy can only emerge from being humble and being humility. Like the pasuk says, we already brought this pasuk, that the Anavim, the humble, will gather in front of Hashem with joy. They seem to be opposite. How do you connect the two? There's a Maamar from the Alter Rebbe, from this pasuk we just explained, as well, explaining this concept. And the Rebbe adds in the brackets, many of the Rabbeim explain this as well in Maamar following, and even now remind the Rebbe Rashab explains the same idea. It's not pshat. A person who's humble makes a mistake and doesn't know his greatness. No. No. He knows his advantages. He knows his milas. He knows all of his advantages. He knows all of his beautiful, unique characters that Hashem has gifted him. Even a person who doesn't behave properly. The Rebbe translates here when we say B'lashon Razal, Malay Mitzvah Karim, and Razal tells us that even the Reikin, even the empty people among Klal Yisrael, full of mitzvahs like a Rima, and the Rebbe says it's not just that they have so many mitzvahs like a Rimain, but it fills them up. Their entire mitzvahs is identified by their mitzvahs. And especially we know that every Jew is a tzaddik, and every Jew has a chazakah. The status quo of a yid is that he's kosher. So in other words, every yid has milas. Every yid has advantages, has special, unique characteristics that Eibusha has given him, has gifted him. Nevertheless, even though you know your greatness, it doesn't make you haughty. It doesn't make you into a mitzvah in your own eyes. How come? And not just that you're not a mitzvah, you're not your own identity. Especially, of course, we don't have to even say that it doesn't bring yeshus, which is Gaiva, ki idea is a emes, shamaylis, yesh, loy, enim, kechev, etzimada, ki'im, nitla, kechzal, mamayla. The trick is appreciation. You know that you didn't create yourself. You know everything you have is given to you by the Eibusher, and therefore, you know your advantages, you know your maila, and this itself brings you to a greater level of humility where you appreciate everything you have comes from Hashem. And you know it's not you specifically, it's because you were gifted. If someone else would be gifted with the same things, obviously he would utilize them and be the same. To the extent that it takes it a step further, it's possible if another person would have my list, my advantages, he would have revealed them even more. Here the Rebbe says, in this context, when a person is able to know everything he has, all of his gifts, and nevertheless appreciate and know it comes from Hashem, that brings you the greatest joy. You know you deserve nothing, you start at zero, and everything you have brings you tremendous joy. And when somebody, so to speak, takes things for granted, and a person doesn't have this appreciation to Hashem, so he's always has resentments, he's always broken by himself, right? So Yeshu, so to speak, having expectations about yourself, that's what brings to the opposite of Simcha. Bittul, Anavin, knowing that in truth you deserve nothing, and everything you have is a gift from Hashem, that's what brings to the greatest joy. And it's the Bittul as well, because again, it's not you remember it's all gift, and if someone else would have had it, you'd be able to utilize it maybe even more. And therefore, complete simcha can only exist in someone who is batal. You need to be humble to experience true joy. Because this simcha is coming as a direct result of the bittul. Therefore, the simcha itself is batal. So again, just to bring out the point, a person who has expectations about himself, he has yeshus, he feels like he something is owed to him can never reach true joy because nothing is going to ever be enough for him. A person who's batel, he knows that he deserves nothing. He's one with Hashem and everything he has is a gift. That person can truly be joy, and therefore true simcha can only be obtained together, side by side with anava and bittul. Now we can go back to explaining the Zohar in a deeper way. The first Chaisar is what she was zoichet to simcha. Right? The pasuk goes on to enumerate how this simcha actually penetrated every level of her being. 100 years, 20 years, 7 years ago, I'll call it spheres. This goes on all the different levels, all the spheres, all the tools that Hashem used to create. 100 is keser, it's complete. It's the higher level of keser, the way it penetrates and comes to the lower level of keser. Therefore, it is meya. It doesn't say meya. It says meya is in a single term because keser is one. It's even higher than one. It's a singular term. In other words, the simcha penetrates the deepest essence of a person, and then that simcha develops. It goes down into your wisdom. You as well start appreciating life in a rational way. And from there it goes down. The joy is expressed and felt emotionally, which are the 7 spheres. So once we talk about the first level of life that she obtained, and she had that joy in every fiber of her being, every part of herself, right? Her essence, as well as her wisdom, as well as her emotions, then it continues. Not just that she had this joy, but the joy was actually felt. And this is what Chava and Adam weren't able to obtain. The simcha was able to be felt. That's the love and chayin. Not just that she reached the joy, but the joy was actually able to be felt and expressed. What does this mean in avodah? We already explained. Where at the same time you're able to know your advantages, still know that they are a gift. So that's bittul and simcha at the same time. And therefore also in the second half of the pasuk, as we conclude the last 3 words, there we won't numerate 120 and 7. Why? This paradigm, this fact, you're able to have at the same time feel joy, but that feeling is not selfish, it's selfless. That's something which doesn't really make sense in the regular terms of our world. This is a combination, it's a paradox of 2 opposite things. That something comes from a higher place than this differentiation, right? When a person is in a space where he has a heart, he has a mind, and there's differences, so then everything fits into its own character, into its own box, and bittul as well as simcha are going to be in 2 different places. When a person reaches a deeper place where it's all one, higher than ischalkus, higher than moichin and midas, higher than the etzem even, where everything's one, that's where you're able to combine simcha and bittul. Therefore, we don't numerate the different, right, the Meya, Esrim, Sheva, which goes on the differences of a person. Therefore, that is the advantage of the last 3 words of the pasuk on the beginning of the pasuk. Obviously, the first part of the pasuk is very high. It deals with simcha in every part of a person from Pirshash al pasuk. And like Rashi as well explains, she was such a tzaddik, she was so righteous. How when she was 100, she was like the age of 20 for sin and punishment. When she was 20, she was like the age of 7 for beauty. Mikama came in Gimel Yom Chuluk. But at the end of the day, the 3 are 3 separate concepts, 3 separate ideas. Mashenkin, Shnei Chayei, the conclusion of the pasuk, which again repeats Shnei Chayei, Shkol and Shavin. There we're dealing with Kulan Shavin. Rashi says they're all equal. So you have great tzidkus in the first half of the pasuk, but at the end of the day, it's different, right? Meya represents something, 20 represents something, and 7 represents something. Rashi says regarding the second 3 words, Shnei Chayei, Kulan Shavin, they're all equal. L'mayel mischalkos, higher than division. And when reaching this level, even what's felt, even the simcha which is expressed and felt in every fiber of a person is able to coexist with bittul, with being humble, because again, you are only an extension of Hashem, and therefore your joy is Hashem's joy. Shleimar. Now the Rebbe says something very powerful. Through a person being able to reach the life. Through a person reaching the joy. Right? Like we explained, that even your true joy, expressed joy, is able to be with bittul. Through that, you obtain physical, regular life. You become a owner. You become a bais on your life. When a person is joyful, when a person is able to be joyous in an expressed way, that will break through any boundaries. You have an increase in life, in joy. Like the Rebbe actually says, we know Yitzchak is the idea of Gvura. Gvura will typically mean restraint, but Gvura also means power. When a person has this joy, it brings tigvoris achayis. It can increase joy in life. It can infuse life in everything a person does. So in other words, through obtaining this joy, in the same time, this being humble, a person actually is zeicha to be an owner of his own life and actually have a lot of energy in life. Ches this maisa, like we already said, of the imois is actually a siman. It's a sign for our children. This avodah of Sarah is a lesson, a sign. It gives us the ability for every single Jew to do the same. Like the Rebbe adds in the parentheses, in the brackets, we said earlier, because we come from the Avos and therefore we receive it as an inheritance. Every person has the ability from Sarah to as well serve the Eibishter with joy, but not just joy which is expressed and revealed. Vasimchatim, you said this. Nevertheless, it's not going to bring you to Yeshus or Gai v'chas v'shalom, because that simcha is predicated on bittul, on being humble. Therefore, nothing bad can emerge. Not just happen, the joy actually helps you in every aspect of the Avodas Hashem, because simcha actually breaks through any boundaries, any limitations that a person might feel he has. To the extent you could serve Hashem higher than any limitation in Tigveris Achayis B'Avodah, which this is, we already explained about Yitzchak, the idea of empowering yourself with a lot of life, which brings to, again, literal life. You can live, surpass many years longer than what maybe you would have been originally or officially assigned. Test, we're going to go now to explain and connect it to the 120th birthday of the Rebbe Shab. Very interesting. We just explained how when a person is joyful, he's able to literally add life to his life, because simcha is paired together, and therefore everything in Avodas Hashem becomes in a completely new way, in a complete way, like we said earlier, and therefore the whole world as well is completed. Let's continue. We could connect this to the birthday this year of the Rebbe Shab, which is the conclusion of the 120th year. The pasuk regarding Moshe Rabbeinu, it says he was 120 years. The pasuk by Noach says the years of a person is 120 years, and the Zohar says this is a remez alluding to Moshe Rabbeinu's life, which Moshe was 120 years. So in other words, Moshe, so to speak, is the symbolism of life. What do we mean? The Zohar explains, because Moshe Rabbeinu, so to speak, is synonymous with the concept of life, because Moshe Rabbeinu actually gives life to all Jewish people. From the tree of life, which this life is joy and vitality, but definitely also literal life, long life. This is in the schus of Moshe, Jewish people live in this world long days. Of this idea of life, Moshe of today, Moshe of our generation as well, gives to every year. Moshe has never ceased. Just like in the past he was serving as well, now he serves. And just like it's Moshe Rabbeinu, the original Moshe as well, it's in every generation we have the Raya Mehemna, the shepherd, which include the Rebbe Shab as well as his son, the Frierdiker Rebbe Kidu, like the Frierdiker writes regarding his father Rebbe Shab, he writes regarding Rebbe Shab after his passing that the shepherds of the Jewish people, the Nisim, don't separate, they don't leave their flock, which is similar to the Maamar Zal that we say regarding Moshe, that he's constantly serving. Now, even now, the Frierdiker Rebbe is saying regarding the Rebbe Shab, he's still finding merit for Jewish people, and the Rebbe says it's moving also regarding the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe is still giving chayis and life and being mamlet schus, right? Finding merit for every Jew, mamshel and brachas, atzlachas v'yishuris, and is constantly flowing bracha and success and and help to the extent that literally gives life from the tree of life to the extent of literal arichas yamim in the physical sense for every single yid. V'hinei, this is Yud. Just like we explained, the life of Sarah is like the life of Geula. It's a life where we completely could express our joy, but at the same time be an extension of Hashem. So too, every Jew who has this koyach, it's not just we have the koyach to be joyful, we have a koyach to be joyful on the same level to the extent that Sarah was like the joy of Geula. Through the simcha of today, we will fulfill the vow that Hashem promises on the third day. And this pasuk refers to Geula like it's explained. The pasuk says, you will give me life for 2 days, and the third day, we will be either resurrected or I'll stand, I'll live in front of you. Goes on. The levels, right? The 2 days are two different ways how the Eibishter express itself within the world, the way the Eibishter relates to the world in an individual way, as well as the Eibishter's overwhelming light, the Soivev, which is transcends the physical details of creation, and that's two general ways how Hashem expresses himself in this world. What does the third day represent? Something that's higher than the two. Says zero limitation, not even limitation of being above and overwhelming and transcends, right? Even above the limitation of being above world. Because again, joy breaks through all boundaries. And through joy you reach the avodah that's completely higher than any limitation. And therefore, therefore the simcha is a preparation for Geula. Because again, Geula is when we're breaking the boundaries of a mala and sefer, breaking all boundaries, and that's what simcha does today. Therefore, when Mashiach comes, there'll be that concept of three, which three represents higher than one, higher than two, higher than division. As well, like in the original pasuk we're talking about, Yom HaShlishi could refer to Atzmus, which is higher than Mal and Seva, but also refers to the third Beis HaMikdash, which will be when Geula comes, Sheyivne Melech HaMashiach, Melech Beis David. How do we know that Geula is so connected to Mashiach? Because again, the Beis HaMikdash will be built through David, Melech Yisrael is Mashiach. And how does the Rambam know that a person needs to be joyous? He brings a pasuk regarding David HaMelech. This is when the Aron was returned to its original place. It says that David was whistling and dancing in front of Hashem. Why was David able to rejoice and dance this way? The David Melech we already explained. Just like Sarah was Malchus, David is Malchus. Therefore, David throughout Tehillim expresses constantly the bittul that he had, how he was literally I'm silent. Malchus is the idea of bittul, of surrendering to Hashem. Therefore, his avodah is able to be with tremendous joy. The when your simcha is with bittul, there is no place for it to eventually lead to something negative. And now we know David HaMelech is joy, and David HaMelech lives on till today. What does it mean he lives? He lives and is alive and strong in every single yid. The Tur David Melech Yisrael, Bidul Malchus. So every yid has an aspect of David HaMelech, of Malchus within him. Therefore, he gives the koyach, the Malchus, the David within every yid gives you the ability to be as well a Melech Malchus, and then you're able to be very joyous in your doing mitzvahs, even though obviously it's a big avodah like that the Rambam says. Nevertheless, you could be joyful, you could celebrate, and the joy will be done in an appropriate and in a good way that won't bring to any negative things. And the Rebbe basically tells us our generation, we have as well Malchus, so we're able to celebrate and express that joy, and in preparation for the Geula, which will as well be able to express our joy. Finally, Eishir Aleph, last Ois, through joy in the performing of mitzvahs. Not just official mitzvahs, but everything he does is serving Hashem, so everything is, so to speak, a mitzvah. This will break through all boundaries, including the boundary of Golus. The Mashiach will come, the Melech, David Melech Yisrael, together with Moshe Rabbeinu, who we spoke about. Because Moshe, the first Redeemer, as well as the concluding, the final Redeemer, which includes Moshe Rabbeinu as well as all of the Rayim Hemnis, all of the shepherds of all generations, including the Frierdiker Rebbe, Shebekar Mamish, Tikuyim, Avtach, Kisvar Shechne Offer, that very speedily the pasuk that the dead will arise together with all these tzaddikim, we will go towards the Gula, and the joy will be upon them. So the Nekudas of art we learned in the Maamar, what was Sarah trying to accomplish? She was trying to accomplish joy. Earlier on, they also tried to accomplish joy. The problem is that they felt the joy. When you feel the joy, it's Yeshus, that Yeshus can bring to very negative things. Therefore, they failed indeed. Sarah was Malchus, she was Bittul, and therefore her joy was an extension of her service of Hashem. It was Hashem's joy, it wasn't her joy, and therefore she was able to be joy and it didn't bring anything negative. And the Rebbe as well says we can learn from Sarah because we as well are Malchus. Every Yid has David and Malchus inside of him. We can be joyful increases in life, physical life, literally, and this is given to us through the Rabbeim who are in charge of giving life and giving joy. We each have a wonderful and a joyous day.